Thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you all for coming, and thank you for inviting me. As we say in Congress, I'd like to associate my remarks with a distinguished gentleman from San Juan Bautista, Luis Valdez. And my God, what an honor just to hear you speak. And my great friend, the supervisor from Santa Cruz County, John Leopold. I mean, you might ask, why am I here? This is really a county fight. The only people that can vote in it are the registered voters in San Benito County. It's not a big county, about 55,000 people. When you look at counties in California, San Benito is rather small in population. Yet it's got a huge issue in front of it. And what I am here, because I've now spent 40 years in elective office at local, state, and federal level, and been through a lot of difficult struggles. Usually it's when economic interest, outside economics interests come in, either to build big developments, big hotels along the coast, to do things that just aren't compatible with what our communities have historically stood for. And I think this is another one of those. And as John so eloquently outlined, when it came to Central Coast, to the oil that was off Santa Cruz, 26 oil companies had bid on it. It was the highest interest that the federal government had ever received in potential leasing of offshore oil. It was all federal lands. That's when we realized that this was really serious, that this was going to happen, and we had to find a tool, a political tool, in the federal toolbox. We found it called the National Marine Sanctuary Program, and in that we could design what it is. It's sort of a park in the ocean, and we could decide whether it's in a park like a forest park where you can cut trees and you can mine and do things, or is it going to be like a national park where you leave it in its pristine character? And we decided we want the national park model, and in that banned offshore oil drilling. And it was a struggle. It got to be big politics. It got to be presidential campaign politics. It even got President Bush when he was running against, because he actually, then Senator Wilson had told President Bush, look, that problem you're having in California, why don't you come out and be the environmental president by endorsing the National Marine Sanctuary and endorse the big footprint that they want to enact rather than the smaller one. You'll get the oil companies will be mad at you, but you know, there's more votes in California for the environment than there are for the oil companies. And President Bush came out, ran an ad, saying he was going to protect the Big Sur and everything. And interesting enough, when his son was president and wanted to reverse that, remember drill, baby, drill, we told the president, we're going to run your father's ad against you. And, but as a lifelong resident and involved in a lot of these struggles, what really struck me here is what I love about this county and so embellished in this community, in San Juan Bautista, and right here in Teatro Campesino, is that we have to forget that we often forget or never learn that the entire state of California, the nation state, sixth largest economy in the world, 36 million people living in this political jurisdiction called California, is all due to Latino leadership. It was the Hispanic leadership that, no, look at the adventurers that discovered this area. They weren't from land, they were on sea. And it was all men in those days, and they were in ships, and they sailed all the way up from Mexico. And they're looking along the coast and figure, where's a place we can pull over? Get some water, maybe some wood for masts. We need a break. And they looked at all the coastline, and they saw Monterey. And they said, let's go ashore there. That's where it all began. Everything began. All the industry in this state began here. All the banking. You look at it. All the education, all the jail, all the criminal justice. Everything began in Monterey. And Monterey County, when they created it, also included San Benito County and Santa Cruz County. We were all part of this marvelous Monterey experience. And we still are. Yes, we've cut off our county boundaries. It was an interesting battle. I mean, San Benito County was formed because they didn't like down Monterey, neither did Salinas. So Salinas went to San Benito County and said, if you want to create a county, you help us move the seat from Monterey to Salinas, a county seat, and we'll join with you. And they did, and that's what we have today. But what I think is so wonderful about this incredible not only cultural history, but economic history, is it was all about the land. We're still doing it. As Margaret said, we're still selling scenery here. We happen to make it so important scenery, we made a national park out of it. Now, you know, when you think about it, there's no national park between San Francisco, where you have the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, that's a national park. There isn't another national park from here to, on the coast, from here to San Diego. This is the only one. You have to go to those high Sierras or up in the Northern California or into the deserts. So we've got one right here in Central California, and people, when they go out and recreate, they don't go in the, you know, jump in the, and this is what made me make it a park. They don't say, hey, Mom, Dad, let's go out and visit the monuments. They'll say, let's go visit the national parks. Well, we got one. And the national park, in that dedication, and many of you were there, was all about this incredible coming together of the tribes. Native folks, all our cultural communities around here came together and said, we all are a part of this. We're all part of this land and history. Well, we still are. And in fact, this county, when I was looking at this county and thinking, how do you put this whole thing into perspective, I got the vision and guiding principles of San Benito County. These were the visions that you went out and spent years creating the 2035 vision for San Benito County. And that vision doesn't ever mention oil drilling. That vision talks about, it talks about economic development. I'll read about it. It says here, people are afforded the facilities needed for healthy lives. Fracking is healthy lives. Environmentally sustainable technologies are embraced. Environmentally sustainable. Last time I checked, oil is a depleting resource, not a sustainable resource. Are embraced. And businesses of any size are encouraged to put down more roots here. Put down roots here. Hire local talent and grow in the rich soil, clean water, beautiful climate, and rural atmosphere of San Benito County. Rural atmosphere. That is not rural atmosphere. I think in all of this, and I've been watching the ads on television, and you're absolutely right, Luis. No means yes, and yes means no. I've never, you know one thing, I've never seen them admit what the whole thing is all about. They're totally using your argument and then putting put no on that, but stating everything you're stating. It's just totally confusing. And that's why we're having this press conference, and that's why I think what you're trying to do is reclaim. I mean, we haven't really changed it. It's the question, are we going to lose it? And I just seems to me that everybody who came to visit, to live in this county and to invest in it has got a stake in this. This is about what your future is going to be like. Now, you may not think it, oh, yeah, we can start a little oil down in here and sort of out in the boonies. It isn't. It isn't out in the boonies. It's end up, you know, I remember Ansel Adams saying, it's like what we call urban acne. You ended up, you have this big white wall here, and in the minute you put something on it, like a photograph, your eyes go right to that. So what is going to happen is you this wonderful pastoral scene that can have, I mean, I think that's the future of California. I think the reclaiming our own cultural history. People are going to have to get out of the cities. They're going to have to come here. And we got to do a lot better job of showing them why to come here. But I think that's what Californians need. When you have 36 million people all huddled around each other, when they can go in this area and drive around and say, my God, I've been driving for an hour and I haven't passed another car out on these rural roads. There's no people out here. And you say, this is what it looked like in the 1700s when the original people came. Hasn't changed. Isn't that worth an incredible value? And certainly the rest of the world's going to want to come and see that. The Chinese are coming. They don't want to look at cities. They got better looking cities than we have. They're going to want to come and look at the rural area. So I just think that when we start despoiling the rural area, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. And you're shooting yourselves because you've already laid out what your principles are. So I think what this measure is all about is sort of what you're asking the voters do in this issue of whether fracking is good or bad. And Frankly, if you look at what California is doing, this is a big leading oil state, and California has not endorsed. Yes, they've tightened the law to make it tight, but they're now out there saying, come frack here. They're trying to make it as difficult as possible because they don't know the answers that you're asking. Is it going to be, and I think what you're going to see, just like nuclear power, that once you kind of look into these costs for safety and adverse environmental impacts, the attraction isn't going to be there. It's not going to be that cost effective to go into fracking. Besides, what's California said? We're going to give you incentives to move off fossil fuels. We're going to require in the state that 30% of all the energy produced by the power companies have to come from renewable energy by year 2020. We're already at 23%. We're going to be there probably in 2 more years from all of the alternatives in wind and solar. And that's the direction. And what's the car of the future? It ain't the gas guzzlers. Tesla's the headlines of the news today, the biggest rolling out their car. And they're going to have a $35,000 SUV in a couple of years, all run on electricity. And they'll say, oh, yeah, but you got to go to the Moss Landing power plant that produces electrons so you can plug your Tesla in. You know what people are doing around here? They're putting those plates on their ceiling, on their roof. And they're just plugging in from their own car, and they're getting their power from the roof. That's what's going to drive the vehicles of the future. Do you know that oil is on the decline? It's on the decline for all of the adverse impacts. And for San Benito County to put themselves at risk, I think is really foolish. So here's my slogan. We teach our kids when they go to school, one of the first things they learn when they got to cross the street to get to that school, they learn a slogan: stop, look, and listen. I think San Benito County on this issue needs to stop any kind of movement on fracking. They need to look around and see what the heck's happening to all these other counties and see the adverse impacts. And if there are positive ones, look at that too. And listen. Listen to what the people really say, not to what expensive ads are buying and trying to message. If you do that, you buy time. And I think that's what this county needs now. They need time to settle in and really figure, maybe this fight will really get us invested in this vision. Luis has had a vision here for San Juan Bautista to build a cultural performing arts center. My God. The richness of what you could provide out of this community. There's probably no other cultural performing arts center that has chickens running around in the streets. That might be a big attraction, believe it or not. But so what I'm into is I love this area. I love its history. I love what it does to look at the future. I mean, this should have been the most developed urbanized area in California if this is where it began. But it was the open space and agriculture that kept business away because kept development away because they wanted to live off the land. We're still living off the land. And so fracking just comes along and sort of parachutes in at a wrong time in our history and a wrong economic movement. And I just think that I hope the voters in this county will wake up and realize that fracking is to San Benito County what the vote is important as the vote was in Scotland, where 88% of the registered voters, and there's 98% of the country registered to vote, where 88% of the voters turned out and made their decision. If you get an 88% turnout here, fracking doesn't have a chance. Thank you very much.